The air in the boardroom crackled with tension so thick it could choke you. Marcus Tate, regional manager, leaned forward, his smirk slicing through the room like a blade. "You're just not cutting it, Aisha," he said, his voice dripping with condescension, oblivious to the storm brewing in the woman across from him. Aisha Bennett sat ramrod straight, her dark eyes locked on Marcus. She was 28, brilliant, and the newest hire at Pinnacle Solutions, a tech firm known for its cutthroat culture. Her resume sparkled MIT grad, 2 patents, a fellowship at Stanford, but Marcus didn't care. To him, she was just another diversity hire, a box check to appease HR. His words landed like punches, each one meant to humiliate her in front of the team. "Maybe you're better suited for something less demanding," he sneered, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, as if daring her to respond. The room froze. Colleagues shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between Aisha and Marcus. Some smirked, others looked away, but none spoke up. Aisha's jaw tightened, her hands clasped under the table to hide their trembling. She'd faced this before: microaggressions dressed up as feedback, assumptions about her competence because of her skin. But today, Marcus had crossed a line, and she wasn't just another employee. Unknown to him, the woman standing quietly at the back of the room, observing with the intensity of a hawk, was Evelyn Bennett, Pinnacle's CEO and Aisha's mother. Evelyn had built Pinnacle from a garage startup into a billion-dollar empire. She was a legend in the industry, known for her razor-sharp intellect and zero tolerance for nonsense. She'd kept her connection to Aisha a secret, wanting her daughter to earn her place without the weight of nepotism. But now, as Marcus's venom filled the room, Evelyn's presence loomed like a gathering storm. Her tailored suit was immaculate, her silver hair pulled back, but her eyes burned with a fury that could level mountains. Aisha took a breath, her voice steady despite the fire in her chest. "Mr. Tate, my performance metrics are public. I've outperformed my targets by 30% this quarter. If you have specific critiques, I'd love to hear them." Her words were calm, surgical, but they carried a challenge that made Marcus's smirk falter. He recovered quickly, chuckling as if she'd told a joke. "Metrics? Sure, you can crunch numbers, but leadership? Vision? That's not something you just pick up." His tone was patronizing, the implication clear. She didn't belong at this table. The word "you" hung heavy, laced with the unspoken weight of her race. Aisha's colleague, Sarah, a nervous woman with a habit of avoiding conflict, coughed awkwardly. "Maybe we should move on to the next agenda item," she mumbled, but Marcus waved her off. No, let's be real here," he said, his voice rising. "Aisha, you're good at following orders, but this company needs innovators, not just workers." The room gasped, the word "workers" landing like a slur. Aisha's face didn't flinch, but her eyes blazed. She'd heard this script before her whole life, in fact. The assumption that she was less capable, less creative, less worthy. But she wasn't here to shrink. "Mr. Tate," she said, her voice cutting through the silence, "if you're questioning my ability to innovate, let's talk about the algorithm I designed last month. The one that saved our biggest client $2 million. Or is that not visionary enough for you?" Her words were a gauntlet thrown down, and the room held its breath. Marcus's face reddened. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone he'd already dismissed in his mind. "Don't get cocky," he snapped. "You got lucky. One hit doesn't make you a star." Evelyn shifted at the back of the room, her movement subtle but enough to draw Aisha's eye. Their gazes met for a split second, a silent exchange of strength. Aisha knew her mother was watching, knew she'd been watching her entire career at Pinnacle. Evelyn had always taught her to fight her own battles. But this wasn't just about Aisha anymore. It was about every black employee who'd been belittled, every person who'd been judged by their skin instead of their work. "Luck," Aisha said, her voice rising now, sharp and unyielding. "I've been breaking barriers my whole life, Mr. Tate. I don't need luck to prove I belong here. But you need to check your biases before you wreck this company's future." The room erupted in murmurs, some shocked, some approving. Sarah's jaw dropped, and even Marcus looked momentarily stunned. He leaned forward, his voice low and venomous. "You're out of line, Aisha. Keep talking like that, and you'll be out of a job." That's when Evelyn stepped forward, her heels clicking against the polished floor. The room fell silent, every head turning to her. Marcus's smirk vanished as he registered her presence, confusion flickering across his face. "Mrs. Bennet," he stammered. "I didn't see you there." "Clearly," Evelyn said, her voice cold as steel. "You also didn't see the talent sitting right in front of you." She moved to the head of the table, standing beside Aisha, her presence commanding the room. "Aisha is not just an employee. She's my daughter." The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Marcus's face drained of color, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The other employees exchanged wide-eyed glances, the air buzzing with shock. Sarah whispered, "Oh my God," under her breath. Evelyn continued, her voice steady but laced with fury. "For months, I've watched you, Marcus. I've watched you undermine talent, dismiss ideas, and perpetuate a culture of division. I gave you the benefit of the doubt, thinking you'd learn. But today you've shown your true colors." Marcus tried to speak, but Evelyn raised a hand, silencing him. "Aisha has proven herself 10 times over, not because she's my daughter, but because she's exceptional. She's faced barriers you can't even imagine, and she's risen above them with grace and brilliance. You've chosen to tear people down instead of building them up." Aisha stood beside her mother, her heart pounding. She'd always known this moment might come, but she hadn't expected it to feel so raw, so liberating. She looked at Marcus, his arrogance crumbling, and felt a flicker of pity. But only a flicker. Evelyn turned to the room, her gaze sweeping over the stunned faces. "This company was built on innovation, not prejudice. We succeed when we value every voice, every mind, every person. If anyone here disagrees, there's the door." The silence was deafening. Marcus slumped in his chair, his career unraveling before his eyes. Aisha felt a weight lift, not just for herself, but for every person who'd been silenced, overlooked, or underestimated. She glanced at her mother, gratitude and pride swelling in her chest. But the fight wasn't over. Aisha knew that moments like this were just the beginning. The real work was in changing hearts, dismantling systems, and building a future where no one had to prove their worth against a tide of bias. She stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "I'm here to stay," she said, addressing the room. "Not because of who my mother is, but because I've earned it. And I'm going to keep earning it every single day." The room erupted in applause, tentative at first, then thunderous. Even Sarah clapped, her face flushed with admiration. Marcus sat motionless, his world collapsing. Evelyn placed a hand on Aisha's shoulder, a silent promise that they'd face the future together. As the meeting adjourned, Aisha lingered, her mind racing. She thought of her childhood, the late nights watching her mother work, the stories of struggle and triumph. She thought of the countless others who didn't have a CEO in their corner, who faced the same battles she did. This wasn't just her victory, it was theirs, too. She walked out of the boardroom, head high, ready to take on whatever came next. The wooden clipboard on the table, with its handwritten note "Unveiled Truths," seemed to glow in the fading light, a quiet testament to the power of truth in the face of injustice. The boardroom doors swung shut, but the echoes of Aisha's words lingered like a heartbeat. She walked down the sleek hallway of Pinnacle Solutions, her steps steady but her mind a whirlwind. The confrontation with Marcus had been a crucible, forging something new within Hera's resolve to not just survive but reshape the world around her. Her mother's revelation had shifted the room's gravity, but Aisha knew the real battle was just beginning. Marcus's downfall was a moment, not a movement. Real change required more than a single dramatic scene. Back in her office, a small space with a view of the city skyline, Aisha sank into her chair. Her desk was cluttered with notes, a half-empty coffee mug, and a framed photo of her and Evelyn at her MIT graduation. She stared at the picture, Her mother's proud smile a reminder of the sacrifices that had paved her path. Evelyn had grown up in a world even less forgiving than this one. A black woman clawing her way through a tech industry dominated by men who saw her as an anomaly. Aisha had inherited that fight, but she'd also inherited her mother's unyielding belief in what was possible. Her phone buzzed, snapping her back to the present. A text from Sarah. Aisha, I'm so sorry. I should have spoken up. Can we talk? Aisha's first instinct was to ignore it. Sarah's silence during Marcus's tirade had stung, a reminder of how complicity often hid behind politeness. But she typed back, lunch tomorrow. Let's be real. If she was going to change Pinnacle, she needed allies, even imperfect ones. The next morning, the office buzzed with whispers. Marcus had been placed on leave pending an investigation, a decision Evelyn announced in a company-wide email that doubled as a manifesto. Pinnacle thrives on talent, not prejudice. It read, we will root out bias wherever it festers. The message was clear. No one was untouchable. Aisha felt a flicker of hope, but she wasn't naive. Corporate promises were easy. What mattered was action. At noon, Aisha met Sarah at a cafe across the street. Sarah fidgeted with her napkin, her pale cheeks flushed with guilt. I froze yesterday, she admitted. I've never seen Marcus like that. I didn't know what to do. Aisha studied her, weighing her sincerity. Sarah wasn't malicious, just conditioned to avoid conflict. That was its own kind of privilege. Aisha thought one she'd never had. You could have said something, Aisha said, her tone even but firm. Silence picks a side, Sarah. Sarah nodded, her eyes downcast. I know. I want to do better. Tell me how. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was a start. Aisha leaned forward. Listen, learn. Speak up next time, even if it's messy. That's how we change things. Sarah nodded again, and for the first time, Aisha saw a spark of resolve in her. Back at Pinnacle, the fallout from the boardroom incident rippled outward. Employees began sharing stories, some in hushed tones, others in bold emails to HR. A senior developer recounted being passed over for promotions because he didn't fit the leadership mold. A junior analyst described how her ideas were routinely credited to others. The stories weren't all about race, but many were, and they painted a picture of a company that had grown complacent, its culture fraying under the weight of unchecked biases. Aisha saw an opportunity. She proposed a task force to overhaul Pinnacle's diversity and inclusion practices, not just to check boxes but to rebuild the company's soul. Evelyn greenlit it, but with a caveat. This is your fight, Aisha. Let it. It was both a gift and a gauntlet. Aisha recruited a team: Sarah, a few outspoken colleagues, and even a skeptical veteran named Jamal who'd seen too many initiatives fizzle out. Together, they drafted plans for mandatory bias training, transparent promotion criteria, and a mentorship program for underrepresented employees. The work was grueling. Some colleagues embraced the changes. Others pushed back, muttering about wokeness or reverse discrimination. Aisha faced them head-on, hosting open forums where tensions boiled over. In one session, a manager named Greg scoffed, "This feels like a witch hunt. Are we supposed to ignore qualifications now?" Aisha didn't flinch. Qualifications matter, she said. But when you assume someone's unqualified because of their skin, you're the one ignoring talent. The room fell silent, Greg's face a mix of embarrassment and defiance. Jamal, sitting nearby, gave Aisha a nod. Progress was slow, but it was progress. Marcus's investigation concluded with his termination. The news spread like wildfire, and while some cheered, others grumbled about cancel culture. Aisha overheard two colleagues in the break room, one saying, "He was a jerk, but did he really deserve to lose his job?" The other shrugged. "Maybe he just said what everyone's thinking." Aisha's stomach twisted, but she didn't confront them. Instead, she channeled her frustration into the task force, determined to prove them wrong not with anger, but with results. Weeks turned into months, and Pinnacle began to change. The mentorship program paired young talent with senior leaders, and Aisha watched as employees who'd once felt invisible started to shine. Jamal, Initially skeptical, became one of the program's biggest advocates, mentoring a shy coder named Malik who'd been overlooked for years. Malik's first projected data visualization learned him a standing ovation at a company showcase. Aisha caught her mother's eye in the audience, a rare smile breaking through Evelyn's stoic demeanor. But not every moment was a victory. Aisha faced pushback from unexpected places. A black colleague, Tanya, accused her of playing the CEO's daughter card to get ahead. The words stung, echoing Aisha's own fears about being seen as a product of nepotism. She invited Tanya for coffee, laying her cards on the table. "I've fought for every inch of this," Aisha said. "My mom's name didn't get me into MIT or land my patents. But I get why you'd think that. Let's work together to make sure no one feels they have to prove themselves twice." Tanya softened, and they became uneasy allies, their shared goal bigger than their differences. As the task force gained traction, Aisha's reputation grew. She was invited to speak at industry conferences, her story resonating with audiences hungry for hope in a world fractured by division. But the spotlight brought scrutiny. Social media buzzed with both praise and vitriol. Some called her a trailblazer, others a diversity hire who'd weaponized her mother's power. Aisha read the comments late at night, her heart heavy but her resolve unbroken. She wasn't fighting for likes or clout. She was fighting for the next Aisha, the next Malik, the next person who deserved a seat at the table. One evening, Evelyn called Aisha to her office. The city lights glittered outside, a stark contrast to the weight of their conversation. "You're doing what I never could," Evelyn said, her voice softer than Aisha had ever heard. "I built this company, but you're making it better." Aisha's throat tightened. For years, she'd chased her mother's approval, but this moment felt deep era passing of the torch. The company's annual gala was the culmination of Aisha's efforts. She stood on stage, addressing a room of employees, clients, and industry leaders. "Pinnacle isn't just about profit," she said, her voice carrying the weight of her journey. "It's about people, every person, no matter their background. We're not perfect, but we're trying. And that's where change begins." The applause was deafening, but Aisha's eyes sought her mother in the crowd. Evelyn's nod was small, but it said everything. Marcus, meanwhile, faded into obscurity. Rumors swirled that he'd taken a low-level job at a competitor, his ego battered but his lessons unlearned. Aisha didn't dwell on him. Her focus was forward in the systems she was building, the voices she was amplifying, the future she was shaping. As the gala ended, Aisha stepped outside, the cool night air a balm against the heat of the evening. She thought of the wooden clipboard in the boardroom, its note, "Unveiled Truths," a reminder of the day everything changed. She'd unveiled more than Marcus's prejudice that day. She'd unveiled her own strength, her mother's trust, and the possibility of a better world. The fight for justice, Aisha knew, was never just one battle. It was 1,000 small choices, 1,000,000 hard conversations, a lifetime of showing up. She looked at the stars above, her heart full. What do you think? Where does justice begin? And how do we bridge the divides that tear us apart?